There are 5 conversations that I believe are the backbone of great people management. They're a structured rhythm, a calendar of conversations that, when you have them consistently, make your team always know where they stand. Development actually happens, and the performance review season becomes a doddle for everyone. And the best part? You don't need to be a naturally brilliant conversationalist. You need the right questions, and that's what I've got for you. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear map of exactly which conversations to have, when to have them, and what to cover. Now, if you've been following my leadership content regularly, you'll know that I talk a lot about the importance of having clarity as a leader. There's the planning side, giving yourself time to think, prioritize, and protect your time for the high value activity that only you can do. Then there's the goals and the objectives layer, being really clear on what your team is working toward and how you're measuring progress. But there's a third dimension to that clarity, and it's one I think that often gets missed: knowing your people, understanding what they want, what they're good at, where their strengths lie, and where they might need support or need to develop to achieve their own goals. Leadership is actually a series of conversations. You can have all the clarity in the world about what it is you want to achieve, but it's the conversations that allow you to connect with your people, build trust, and both challenge and support your team to do their best work. And that's really what this video is about: 5 conversations, a structured rhythm that, when you have them consistently, brings your whole approach of leading people to life. Most of us, if we're honest, know we should be having more meaningful conversations with our team as a leader. But one of the things I've learned is not that these conversations never happen. It's that everybody's just really busy. And when things get busy, they either don't happen at all, or when they do, they can feel a bit ad hoc, a bit reactive. You cover whatever is urgent, and the important stuff often gets quietly pushed to the side. And the challenge, managers tell me again and again, is bringing this all together to have a clear sense of which conversation to have, what each one is for, and how they connect into something coherent. And that's exactly what these 5 conversations helps you do, because they're not random check-ins. Each one has a specific job, and together they create that clarity and a rhythm and routine that means nothing important ever falls through the gaps. Think of the conversations as 5 different gears, I suppose, in your people management system. Some you only need to have once a year, some are quarterly, and one is just a quick 15-minute drop in that happens every couple of weeks. So together they create the rhythm and the routine. And once that routine is in your diary, people management stops feeling like something you have to remember to do. It just becomes the way you work. So let's go through each one in turn. The first conversation is the career conversation. It's where you find out where your team member actually wants to go, not where you assume they might want to go, and not where the typical path is within your organization, but what they want from their work and their career. Years ago, I was managing a sales team, and like most large sales organizations, we had a clear path. You develop through account management, you take on a bigger customers, broader territories, and more complexity. And that was the route you moved up, and what progression looked like within the organization. And I had a conversation with one of my team members. Now, he was genuinely great at his job and someone I really valued. And when we actually sat down and I asked, it turned out he wasn't interested in the classic sales leadership route at all. He had a completely different direction in mind, something outside the typical path for our organization. Now, I had 2 options. I could have quietly filed that away, carried on developing him in the way that I developed everyone else. And ultimately, what I'd be trying to do is fit a square peg in a round hole. Or I could use that information. So what it did was completely reshape the next conversation, the development plan, because I knew what he was actually building towards. We could identify the skills, the knowledge, and experiences that would keep his profile strong within the organization and complement where he ultimately wanted to go. He remained a really valued, engaged member of the team. He wasn't frustrated and he wasn't quietly disengaged and trying to do this on his side. He was growing in his direction. And in time, that's exactly where he went. The conversation also should uncover what people like doing and what they hate doing, and where do they get their energy from, because not everyone wants to be promoted to the big job, but everyone I've ever met is looking for some form of enjoyment and fulfillment from their work. So when you have this, at least once a year, sooner if someone's new, or someone just seems a bit flat, it's often an opportunity to just re-engage on this topic. And the questions to ask: what do you want from this role right now? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And what does that actually look like? What do you love doing in your work and what drains you? And what skills do you need to develop to get where you want to go? Now, quick tip: block 45 minutes to an hour for this. Don't try and squeeze it into a standard one-to-one, and keep the notes in a shared document that they own, but not hidden away in a private folder. If they can see it, they trust you're using it. And trust really matters in this situation. Now, this conversation becomes the input for the next conversation as you take what you learned in the career conversation and turn it into a focus plan for the year. Not a wish list of everything they could ever develop, a really focused plan, maybe 2 or 3 things that would actually move them forward. I think it's really important to remember that your team member is responsible for their own development. Your job is to support it. That's a meaningful distinction, because you're not supposed to be solving their career for them. You're the guide. And honestly, that takes a lot of pressure off you. The questions I'd work through based on where they want to be would be: what are the biggest gaps that we could close this year? If you could only focus on 2 or 3 high impact things, what would they be? And what real work can we use as your development opportunities? The more you link development to actual work, not theoretical training courses, the better. Real practice beats a workshop every time. The best development happens in the day-to-day of the job, when someone is given an opportunity to stretch, and maybe you could delegate some work that allows them to try something new and then reflect on what they learned afterwards. That process is what makes the development stick. I was running a leadership workshop at the end of last year, and one of the persons there was telling us about a very bright but very challenging member of their team. And he said, I always feel like I'm herding a cat. As fast as I try and focus in one way or another, he's off on something else. And he just commented, he likes shiny things. This third conversation helps here, as it ensures that you are aligned at all times. It's about breaking down your year into 4 focus quarters and creating one version of the truth about what they're actually working on this quarter. Without this, things can drift. Priorities mutate. You think you're working on one thing and they're working on something else. And by month 3, you've got a whole load of confusion. If you let this roll, by the end of the year, you have a completely different performance review to what the objectives actually say. So have this conversation at the start of each quarter, before the work is already fully underway, not halfway through, as this is where you'll be translating those big annual goals into much more tangible, doable, and as a consequence, accountable plans. And the questions that are really helpful here are finding out: what are your top 3 priorities for this quarter? This is a sense check that you feel the same. Then ask, is there anything competing for your time that we haven't discussed? And the third one is, what do you need to say no to, deprioritize, to make room for what actually matters? So a tip on this is always have a working document that you keep updated, one version of the truth, shared and visible. This is separate from the development conversation, by the way. This is purely about the work, but this creates clarity and alignment each quarter, makes all the other conversations of management so much easier to have. The fourth conversation sits alongside the priorities discussion and is key in ensuring that development plan comes to life. So you're checking in on progress of the development area they committed to of the last quarter and agreeing the focus for the coming quarter. Remember, depth beats breadth. Every single time, I'd much rather someone genuinely develops one skill in a quarter than skims the surface of 5. The questions to ask are: first, review. How's your progress on your specific area going? What have you learned? And are you ready to move on, or do you need more time? Then look forward. What are you focusing on this quarter? Where do you have a chance to actually practice this in your real work? On what's getting in the way. Learning isn't linear, so what you're actually looking for is genuine engagement with the practice side of it, not just a neat tick box. This next conversation is the one that ties everything together. Quick, focused check-ins. 15 to 20 minutes every couple of weeks where you help someone reflect on what they're learning and keep moving forward. This is brilliant for accountability. It's where you'll help the learning to stick. It's all in these small, regular moments where someone pauses, reflects on what they've tried, and decides what they're doing next. And the framework for this one could not be simpler because there's just 3 simple questions that you would use in your one-to-ones. What have you learned since we last talked about this? What's your action plan to take it forward? And what support do you need from me? That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. Frequency matters more than length here. 15 minutes every 2 weeks is worth more than one long session per quarter or half year. Keep a brief note of each one, just a line or two, and you'll start to see the patterns. You'll have something real to point to when the review time comes around. When you lay these 5 conversations across the year, it doesn't actually feel like a lot. It feels like a system, a routine. You might run the career conversation and the development plan in January. Your quarterly priorities check and development reviews sit at the start of each quarter, and the development drop-ins happen in the gaps in your one-to-ones every 2 or 3 weeks. 15 minutes, that's all. Once it's in your diary, it becomes the default, so you don't have to remember to do it. And it's not something that gets bumped when you get busy. It just happens. And the managers who do this consistently tell me the same thing, that performance reviews become short meetings because there are no surprises. Everything's already been covered. The relationship is already there. That's what this creates. And a quick note for anyone who's building an AI assistant into their leadership system: the notes from these conversations, the documentation you build over that time, that's what makes the AI tool genuinely useful. When you've got the human layer sorted, the AI layer becomes really powerful. But that conversation is probably for another video. The first quarter you run these, you might find a bit clunky, and that's completely normal. If you haven't got clarity around the career conversation, that's where I'd start. And by the end of the first quarter, the quality of your conversation should be noticeably better. So stick with them. And remember, these aren't scripts, they're just starting points. Use the questions to get into the conversations fast and let it go where it needs to go. That's where all the good stuff happens. And if you want to see how these conversations fit into a bigger leadership system, a complete rhythm of planning, people, and priorities, I'd watch this video here. It's the framework I use with my clients to help them find the time to lead and not just manage. If this was useful, please hit subscribe and maybe share it with a fellow manager who you know wants to lead better. I will see you in the next video.